All right. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, and welcome to today's class on front-end development beginner. Uh, yeah, we've done a lot, like we've always been saying. We've come a long way, and yeah, we've covered the basic HTML, and I believe by now we should be able to at least anything in HTML, you should be able to fix it yourself. All you need to do is to just, okay, I need this tag. We have more tag. We have legend tag. We have a legend tag. We have address tag. We have telephone tag. We have aside tag. We have more tags, like thousands of tags that we don't even know about yet. Okay, so well, you don't really need to know everything. All you need to know is how to look for your tag if you want to use them. Okay, so okay, I think I need an aside tag now. You can look for it, even if you don't know it exists before. If you make a research that okay, I need something like an aside. You see, in most like our current LMS websites, we have a sidebar, a sidebar. So that sidebar mostly they use aside for that sidebar, like the tag called aside for that kind of sidebar. If you use your div, it's going to work fine. Like I always say, even your footer, instead of using footer, if you say, okay, I don't want to use footer tag, I want to use my div for it, it's still going to work. Your main, if you want to use div, it's still going to work. But for easy um um interact interaction, and then for another person that wants to look at your code to be able to read it, that's basically how everything. All of these things we are just trying to build ourselves when we are going to be doing collaboration. Because when you get to collaboration, you don't get to decide if your code is okay yourself, right? You have someone after you write your code and then you push it to GitHub, you make a pull request, right? You make a pull request that, okay, sir, please, I'm done with my part of the design. Please, I want you to merge my code to the development or maybe to the main branch, right? In that case, the person that you're making the request from is going to go back to your code. You know, when you're making a pull request, you make the commit message and then you probably maybe have an image of what you've done, the design. And at the same time, before the person will merge your work, the person is going to go through your code and see if what you did is okay, if you follow best practice and all of those, if your alignment is fine, if your code is not going to cause any problem to the main code, right? So in that case, that's why we say, okay, you have to follow best practice and follow, okay. If that person come back to your code now and say, okay, and he's now seeing div everywhere, he's going to get confused. Well, say, okay, maybe you have comments, you're able to comment every part of it. Fine, it's still going to work. But then some persons, they don't really look at the comment. They want to see the tags. Like I'm working on header. I have header tag. Okay, this is header. Then I will know I don't have to stress myself trying to think what is this div about. Then if I go to main, I can easily see main. If I go to section, I can easily see section. We have multiple sections on pages. What would differentiate each section is the ID. So from the section, you have an ID that will just represent a particular section. So if I see the ID name, and like I always said, when you're naming convention, your naming should always relate to whatever that section is about. If you're working on what we do. So your ID name should also be what we do, something like that. So that when I see or when someone sees it, you can understand, okay, this is the section for what we do. So that increases marks, increases your what will I say, your genuinity. What I say genuinity. Just okay, I think this person is very good because okay, he knows what he's doing. He can easily label everything and using the accurate, the best tag for each of the section or whatever he's supposed to do. So that's just and then the CSS, yeah, fine. We may have to stop using the custom CSS. We may use Bootstrap more, and then when you get Tailwind, you use more of Tailwind. However, you still have to know your CSS very well. Because if you don't know it very well, there's no way you know all of this framework or library very well. Do you understand? So you have to know the CSS very well itself. And there are some things libraries will not give to you. There are some animations that you will not get. There are some keyframes. There's some display over and all of this and that. It is only your CSS that will give those things to you. So that you have to know your CSS very well. We have other CSS, we have SCSS, we have SAS and all of those things, but I don't even know them. As far as I'm good with my CSS with custom, I'm okay with Bootstrap, and I know the tailwinds, then I'm very good to go. I can style anything, like anything. So you don't have to know everything, all right? But then if you can know it, fine. It's addition to your portfolio. So that's that. HTML, we are good. CSS, we are okay, we are good. Bootstrap, I think we are good also. Now, JavaScript. It may likely take, okay, I think we would say that we took just a month for, it's up to a month, let's say 2 weeks here for HTML, then another 2 weeks for our CSS, then another 2 weeks for our Bootstrap. Those ones are easily, you get to understand them easily. But JavaScript is the backbone, I'll say the backbone of all development. Sorry, web development when we're talking about HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, because we have other functions, we have Python, we have all of those things we can do with everything JavaScript does. So I wouldn't say that's the backbone anymore. But we're talking about HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And JavaScript is more like the backbone of Stadia, routes, or their group. So and then last week we introduced ourselves to JavaScript, the variables, the keywords, and then values, how to assign value to keywords, how to assign value to variable, how to manipulate variable, how to change variable, and some variables that cannot be changed. So we did all of those things last week. And then we talked about adding more like a cart in the shopping cart. When you add number, you increment number, and then you update a given number. So that was last class last week. So today we are going to be jumping. What we did last week on Thursday, I want us to put it into practice. Basically what we did last week, last class was just to see our changes, what we are doing in the console. But right now, I want us to put it into practice and bring it outside. Let the client see everything we're doing. The console is basically not the client side, I would say. So the web itself, the interface is okay. Let's allow the client to see the changes. When user clicks, I want them to see that okay, my item is now equal to this. I think I've added 2 items or 3 items on all of those things. So, and to this class, based on the fact that whatever all these things we are going to be doing is going to be based on what we learned last week. So I want us to respond, interact, and I'm going to ask questions. I want us to try and answer, right? And I believe we've added some more knowledge from last week. So although during the weekend we had an hour session where we talked about arrays and then functions. So we are going to still talk about this one today if we need any of it. So let's just get into class and let's get into code. All right, so what are we going to do? What do we want to do? We want to have a UI that user can go to and click on. On Jumia, you get to click an item and then it opens a different page for you to tell you the details of the items, right? So, and then when you see the details, you can now choose to, okay, I want one of this item, or I want 2, I want 3, and all of that. And then when you are clicking, you are seeing the changes on the number of items that you are clicking. And at the same time, you are seeing the total amount that you're supposed to pay, right? So that's what we are going to do today. Okay. All right. I'll try. So I believe we can all see my screen right now. Can we all see my screen? If you can, if it's like clear, if it's bold enough, that's what I'm saying. If I need to zoom again, just let me know. But then if it is bold, okay. Thank you very much, Donatus. All right. Okay, now let's try this. I want us to come up with a design. Okay. I think we had a design from our last bootstrap. This is the design should take a card image. I'm not using bootstrap here. I don't think I'm using bootstrap. So we are going to use our CSS. Or do we need to use bootstrap? Okay, it's going to take a card image, right? And then under the image, we're going to have another card image. We're going to have another card image like 3. Okay. So, and then we're going to have in front of it, let me open Jumia. Just like a Jumia cart. Okay, let's assume that we want let's go for generators. Okay, things are so expensive. All right, let's just choose this that is small. Okay, this is what we want. Exactly, this is exactly what we want. We don't need all of these details. We only need here, like this. This is what we need. So we are going to have an image like this, and then we're going to have 2 other cards like this, 2 other images, just tell us, okay, this card, the other, blah blah blah, all of that. So then we are going to have the title, that's the name of the item that we are buying, then the price of the item under it. Then we're going to have in stock. How many do we have left in stock? 5, 10. Then we're going to have it here. And then we're going to have add to cart. That means, or we can have just plus and minus icon. That okay, I want to add 1 more, or add 2 more, or add 3 more. And then at the bottom, or we could say this side, we could just have the total that you're adding. So let me add 1 now. Let's see. Okay, it's not showing, it's showing here instead. Well, we are going to have our own here. Let me check the cat stuff. Something like this, yeah, we're going to have it here, cat summary, and then the subtotal, something like this. So that's what we want to do. And I want us to follow. Or let's use Bootstrap. It's going to be very fast. I'm going to copy. If you have the Bootstrap CDN, please drop it. If you have the Bootstrap CDN, feel free to drop it. So, I don't like looking for that Bootstrap open there. But then if you don't have it, don't worry. I think I can. Okay, I think you have it here already. So CSS. What am I supposed to do to this? I've forgotten.
Sir, no, click on the button, that B button there.
Okay, I'm coming. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it?
The nav, that B logo there, Bootstrap logo.
Okay, Bootstrap logo. So let's see the home page so we can see the CDN from the home page. Yes. All right, we have the CDN here. So we can paste it above. And then we have the script here. We can paste it below. Are we all together? Are we ready to design something? Are we ready to build a cart?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So what are we doing? We already know we don't have the design. We just have an idea of what we want to do. So let's go back to this place and see what we want to copy. Remember, we're going to have something here also, and then we're going to have something here. So we're going to pick this one and add it to this one. So now, what do we do first? We have this and we have this. What do we do first? Let's go. So we're going to create, let's just call it a main, right? And then inside the main, we're going to have, let's just use a container SM. No, I think this is container SM, right? And then inside the container, we're going to have a row that will take one of this column and then this other column. So dot row, right? And then dot column. That should be large what? Or let's just, yeah, let's go with large. Column large. This should take 8, and maybe this should take 3. 3, 9, or 8, 4. Okay, let's just go with 3,
9.
4. 9, 3, Abby. All right. So then you have the other one. You take 3. Okay. Then what else? Let's do this class. Let's give it what? BG secondary, right? And then PY. Okay, yeah, PY5. So here should be container should have PX4. I won't explain all of these things. We already know them. So then we have our row. But for now, let's see if what we have is even working. It's okay. So let's give our height. How do we give height here? Height is let's give 75, right? Is that okay? And then BG info. So here also let's give height 75 and then BG danger. So let's see if we are good to go. Okay, this is not what we want. So what's going on? Column large 9 and column large 3. Right. BG info. What's this height? Is this height correct?
Yes, the height is correct.
Yes, correct.
Okay, so what is our danger? What is our danger? What is our danger? Okay. Okay, let's put
I
something.
think you need to.
Sir, can you try to write the text? Input the text.
Okay.
To the
All
lesson.
right. Correct. Okay, so let's put 2 texts. One for the upper one. Oh, okay. All right. So I think the text, that means the height is not correct.
I think the height is usually H50 and H100.
H50 and H100. Good.
Yes, H50, H100.
Okay.
This week that is 25, 75, 50.
Okay. I don't think that's correct also. So let's go back to the docs. So we can just look for heights. EIGHT. Okay, so we have, where is the heights? What is this one bringing? No, not this. HIGHT. Size fonts, no. This is the original height. Okay, let's try width. Maybe they don't want to give us height. Progress. Let's hold that. W75. This one is actually correct. What is that height now? Okay, let's just.
I had this problem when I was looking for height too. I couldn't find height in Bootstrap.
Right. I don't know why they're hiding their height. But let's see if, let's just use this one and then we'll go and style our height if they are trying to be smart. So let's call this, let's go to this guy, create the file. All right. Okay. What should be here? I forgot to, padding.
Oh, this is 0.
Margin 0. Thank you.
Margin 0. Yeah.
0.
Margin
Good.
0.
Okay, the
Do you
last
need,
one is
do you need box sizing?
It's like you added percent to it. I don't know.
doesn't matter.
Okay.
Well, we could actually put the box size now to our choice. So should we put it or we should not put it? The box sizing.
We should put it down. Box sizing. Yeah, border
Okay.
box.
Box sizing for that box. Good. All right, now we have .h. Okay, so yeah, we are going to say HIGHT. Let's just use 70 VH. Then let's add important G. We don't want to take chances. Okay. All right. So does this, let's use our whites. Let's use VG whites. VG white. Although I'm going to remove the height though, because I want the content to give us the height. So I just use the height to see what we are doing currently. All right. So we need a gap. I need to just remove this. From there. So, right here. Good. So we can now swipe like this. Good. Okay, so we need a gap. So what do we have here? How do we get a gap? Can anybody remember?
We use G.
Gap.
for
GY.
GY.
GY. Is it GX? I don't know. Let's do.
Let's pass 3, then GX will pass another value.
Okay. Let the last person say something. The last person that talked just now. Let me hear from
Let's
you.
just use G. So that it give us
GX.
8, right?
Okay.
Is this okay?
No.
So what should we use?
Let's use 4.
yes, 4.
Okay,
Let's use 4. Yes.
well, okay. Now let's save it. All right. Where's the gap? The gap is not gapping. Gutter.
What happened to the color?
We changed it actually. Okay, I think our container does have a background color also. I think the container is taking white. So let's give the background, the container PG info also. Oh, what is the background? Let's give it PG transparent. Let me see. No, that's not it. Why are they taking the same color? I'm not expecting that.
Let's just work with different colors for now. Maybe.
Okay. It's still the same. We need gap. That's the point. We need a gap. So we have to fix it now. Right. So let's use a GX. Let's see.
To be a GX.
GX, right? Yeah. So, but then it's still not working. Let's see. Okay. So let's just do it this way. Gap. Let's reduce this. That gap is supposed to work. Why is it not working? Okay, I think it's increasing or something like that. I don't want to give margin, so let me go and check the gap again. Or gutter. Check gutter again. How gutter works. Horizontal gutter. Okay, so what is the problem? We have row GX column. Let's do it again. Let me just copy this one. Let me give this color also. Primary. Okay, the gap is not working at all. All right, let's move on. We are going to see what the problem is.
Our custom styling.
Custom.
Yeah.
We should use custom.
So let's
Yes.
try let's try gap.
So let's just try gap.
Gap. Okay. All right, that's good. Okay, gap what?
3.
Gap 3. Okay. Interesting. Let's see. Oh, gap has done the gapping. See what happened?
Let's
No.
reduce it now. Let's reduce it to 2.
Okay, let's use
or
one. Let's try
Let's see
one.
one.
It's still the same thing. So I think we should just use, let's take this to 8. So let's see what will happen. All right. So we can then, let's add gap 10. What is going on? It's not working. To be 8. Oh,
Sir, can you try introducing it to the columns? Yes.
Column.
Yes, just try.
I think is gap not for flex? I don't, because we're on grid. Is the gap going to work with the grid?
No, gap is used for grid. That's what it's used for.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I don't know what this thing is behaving actually, but then let me make this 8 and then let's go with this what we have like this. I don't really enjoy this though because we still have this space is not uniform.
So it's supposed to be 8 and 4.
8 and 4. All right, with 8 and 4, we will not have the gap. That's the point. And then the MX will throw this guy to the bottom. See? MX is throwing the guy to the bottom. So let me reduce it. And then let's see what we have now. Now we have the same thing, 2 joined together. That means this GX is not working. Let's solve that later. Let's not waste our time. All right, we need an image, and then yeah, we're going to have another row, 1 row, and then 2 rows. Let's forget about this one for now. It's going to be too much of styling. 1 row, and then another, sorry, 1 column, then the second column. So yeah, just remove this. Remove this under, then we have dot row. Okay, and then dot column. All right, so we have what is it? This should take like 4, and then it should take like 8, 7, and 5. Column like 5, column large 7. Okay, so now we have, let's use an image. Let me just look for any image here. Sorry, I may have to cheat here. I have to cheat. Okay. IMG. Then we drop this. Okay. So then the next thing is, let's see first. All right, the image is big. All right, so let's reduce the size of the image with 70%. Okay, this seems too small. The image is not good. Sorry, guys. Just being very lazy. Let's look for an image, any image generator. Okay, I don't know why our row is not working. So I'm thinking of something. So yeah, something. Okay, let me get this download, save image as. where are we? Desktop, include JS images, and then save it. Oh shit. I've saved it with a different name. Could this thing work? This .webp and gen, it should work though. All right, so let's get the image assets. Insert assets. Then image. Then gen dot webp assets image gen dot webp. I doubt that will be. I doubt it so much. Let's look for a better image. Let's do the same thing. Do the same thing. No, it's a good image.
Sir, should I drop image?
Well, I'm almost there though. Or generator. We're going to pick one. Let's just pick anyone. It's wasting my time. Free download. Okay. Gen 3. All right, so we have that. Just remove this two. I'm showing you. Why is it not showing? Okay, so let's say gen3 dot jpeg assets image and then gen3 dot jpeg. No, that wasn't the problem. Why is our image not showing now? No. Set img.
Sir, I think the image has its own folder. It's not inside assets.
Oh, yeah, thank you. I didn't notice that on time. All right. That web whatever is supposed to work. So I'm just going to undo. Okay. So let's use that web gen 1.webp. So that should work now. Okay. So that's 100%. All right. So the next one, we're gonna have this as the title. Let me just call it H1 or P title or name, item name. Let's call it code generator. Then under it, we're gonna have the price. P. Let's say brand. Let's call it KDC. Then we're gonna have the price. Let's make it there's something I'm going to explain to you guys. So I'll just say, let me use the span here. So I give a class, and then let's leave it like that. Let's put price like that for now. Or let's just add something for now so we'll see our styling properly. And then the last one, we have in stock. In stock. Stock. Let's have another span. What should be in stock? Let's say 10 for a start, and then add a class, call it stock. Okay, and then we're going to have two buttons so that we can add and remove, add item and remove item. So then let's have another one. Let's have a div with a row. Let's just use flex. Too much of row is problem. Should be div flex. Right, then we have button. Can someone look for plus icon and subtract icon plus? I will need to copy this CDN also. No way. Let's have this thing. Then we have the count here. Count, and then here we're going to have another P for minus. Okay. All right. So let's see what we have now. Okay. So, all right. So let's flex this. Let's class. Let's say font FS2 P3 BG. Is there BG orange? BG danger for now. Okay. Okay. So PX PY1 and then rounded MD. I hope I'm right. This is not the window. What's rounded, please?
Rounded is to give it a border radius, but you need to remove the MD. I think that's not
Rounded. Oh, rounded. Good. Okay. All right, that makes sense. So let's add small space. Let's say, let me add space here. Class. Add MX4. Okay. So then let's item center. Align items center. If there's any mistake, please let's feel free to. All right. So now we want to click on this to give us this and click on this to give us something here. Although this and this is supposed to be a button. Supposed to be a button. So we have our stock and then we have our price, we have our brand and all of this. So now what next is basically what we want to do is just for us to see how the counter works and then how we manipulate this particular number and also how we manipulate this particular number. So now let's focus on this and give it a total of whatever we have here. So this other one where we have the style, I'll just put total. Just put P total. Total should take a span, and then let's just assume for now that our total is 50,000. All right, so class total. Okay. Make it bigger. So we have FS3. All right. Okay.
Now, what next? After doing this, we've been able to have our price, we have our stock, we have our total. First thing is, I don't want to have this price here. I want JavaScript to give me a price. Sorry, yeah, I want JavaScript to give me an item price. And at the same time, I don't want this count to be here or this stock. I want JavaScript to give me this stock. But before we do that, let's have a function, or let's manipulate the DOM so that when we click on this plus, we are going to see something inside our console. When you click on plus or minus, you are going to see that, okay, this particular button has been clicked, right? So how do we do that? That's the first thing we need to do. I'm going to change that to button because I want to use a button. Let me use a button for that. Where is it? Button. Then here we have a button also. Okay. Button and button. Okay, so let's see how it looks like now. Still the same thing. All right, so now we want to, this should be plus and this should be minus. So let's add a class to it for minus and this class for plus. Everything I'm doing is still normal styling and just normal content. So you should understand everything to this point. Now, I want to be able to click on this button and then get something in my console that this button has been clicked. How do I do that? There's something they call onClick function. There's something they call onClick function in HTML. OnClick, that means when I click on this button, I want something to happen. Anytime I click on this button, I want something to happen to my page, or I want something to be triggered. So onClick is like an attribute that's being passed just the way we pass class, the way we pass some other attribute like data OS, alt, and width. So onClick is also being passed as an attribute. So now let's do that. OnClick, that's the first thing. As you can see now, you declared your onClick on the button that you want to click. So let's do it again on the plus. OnClick also on this. OnClick also on the plus sign that, okay, when I click on the plus, I want something also to happen. But then you don't just declare the onClick without passing anything. There has to be a value. Just like we have class that will pass values to it, we pass properties to it, sorry. So the same thing is applicable to the onClick. When you call your onClick, you have to pass an attribute, a property to it, so that that property is what you are going to use inside the JavaScript. That when you click, I want something like this to happen to this property. So let's start with the plus. Let's say add. When you click add, then you pass a parenthesis like this. And here also, that's minus, let's say subtract instead. Subtract. God, I don't study English. Subtract. Is this correct? Subtract. Okay. Yeah. This is good. All right. So now this is the function for onClick. This is the function for an onClick. Function is just a normal keyword, the way we have var, the way we have lets, and the way we have const. So the same thing is applicable here. Functions are just it's just a normal keyword that you use to declare a function also. So now I want to be able to click on this button to give me a subtraction, and then I want to be able to click on this button to give me an addition. This thing can be anything. This subtract can be anything. Why this add can be anything. I just want you to give us the action is actually triggering. I want each of the name and each of the button to give us the action that is triggering. So that's why I add, subtract, and add. Now let's save this and go to our JavaScript now. So we have what?
Sorry, remove
I'll
the
take
A's in the
questions.
subtract.
Okay. Subtract. I should remove the S.
There's no S after B here.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Sorry. I want to start. Okay. So now let's call our add function. Remember, I call it a function, right? So we declare a function. If you are declaring a const, if you want to use a keyword const, you say const something, right? Equals to something. So the same thing for var, let this thing equals to something. So when you're working with functions, you say function, and then that name that I passed as a property to my own click. So I will say add, and then don't forget the parentheses. Then open this like this. So function is a block of code. It's a block of code that is unique and it performs a specific function. Your function is a block of code that performs a specific function. You're going to tell the function that, okay, this function, this is what I want you to be doing for me. Then you can have, like I said, we have function for add, and at the same time, we have function for subtract. So the first function is going to be doing what? It's going to be adding for us, while the second one is going to be subtracting for us. So that's what function just, it performs a specific task that you give to me, that you assign to it. And for you to declare your function, this is how you declare function. You call the function name. The function name should always come with a parenthesis. Although the latest way of calling all of these things is different, but we'll get to that later. But this is what you have to start with, right? So the function is the keyword. The next thing is the function name, right? The function declaration, which is the add, and then the parentheses. That's what you use to do a function. If you see anything anywhere that looks like this, gets me, something like this, and then you see something like this, that means this is a function. They call it, yeah, get me is a function, right? Because of this parenthesis. Sometimes it could be a method also. So that's just, now add, then the parenthesis means, okay, I think we are working with a function. And then this parenthesis is the code, is the block of code that, okay, anything inside this parenthesis is what this function is going to work, it's going to perform. Now we have function add, and then we have function subtract. The add one is going to keep adding our item. It's going to keep adding. When we click on it, we want you to add the item, and when you click on subtract, we want to subtract from the item. Now, for us to even know if this function is even working, when I click, for now, let me show you. For now, if I should click on it, nothing will happen. Wait, it's console. All right. So clicking on it for now. Where is it? This our styling is very wrong. Let me just use this. Okay, and then let's go back to large screen. I don't have time right now. Okay, when I click on this, I'm not getting anything right now. I'm not getting anything. Saying add is not defined. Coming. Okay, I've not saved it. Sorry. All right. If I click on this guy now, I'm not getting anything for now. There's no response from the click. When I click on it, there's no response. But then as soon as I declare anything or assign anything or I write anything inside this for, okay, function, when the add button is being clicked, remember this add is the add button from our index.html. So when that add button is being clicked, I want something to happen. So let's try if this thing is even going to click first. Let's do console.log add button clicked. And then, yeah, let's console.log subtract button clicked. Are we together here? I want to see, okay, when I click on this thing, I want this console.log to run until I click on this button before this thing will run. For now, there won't be anything in the console until this button is being triggered or this subtract is being triggered. So now let's see, let's clear our console. To clear your console, use this button like this to clear your console. Now, when I click on this add button, I get add button clicked. When I click on it again, I'll get the same thing. That means I've clicked on it twice. When I click on it again, I get 3, 4, 5, and that's it. So when I click on minus, I'll get another one. Subtract button is clicked. If I click on it again, I get something else again. That means, okay, our add button and our subtract button is being triggered, right? So after that, what is the next thing for us to do? We want to have a count, right? By default, our count should be what? Is 0. By default, our count should be 0. So let's go back to our HTML. Yeah, count, we don't have anything here. at all. We don't have anything. So now let's give it count. Let's call it count, a class count. So I want to call my count in my JavaScript and give it something. This count now, we use count for styling. At the same time, we use class for styling in your CSS. And at the same time, you can use class for JavaScript functions also. You use your class to call this particular element in your JavaScript. Okay, JavaScript, this particular class that I'm calling now, I want you to go to the index of HTML and look for the element that this class represents, or that this class, this particular name can be found in its class. So now count, I want to pass something to my count. Let's do that. Let's do that. Put your function up. It's good to declare everything you want to use above. Declare everything. So let's say, let's count number, count num. This is going to be the count num. Remember, we want to pass the 0 to the count num. Let count num be equals to. Now, we are going to pick something from our index.html. This is what we are trying to call, this count. So how do we call this element itself? We have different ways of calling an element. We have the first one, document.getElement by ID, document.getElement by ID. Then you do it this way. Then you call the ID name. Let's say just put ID like this. That's the first one. Then another one, we have document.querySelector. Query selector. This one is used for class. So because it is used for class, you have to use dots and then the class name, right? So that two things is what you can use to call anything, or to assign something, or to just to call anything from the index.html. So, and right now, what are we trying to call? We are trying to call our count, which is this. So what do? We say, since our count is a class, not an ID, is a class, not an ID. If I have ID here, right, and I use count ID, this one, I will use the first one here, document.getElement by its ID. But currently, what I'm using is a class. I can use any of the two. It's going to work fine, right? So let's just go with the ID. Let's just go with the ID. Okay, so now we say document.getElement by ID, document.getElement by ID. Then what do we call? We are calling our what? Count ID. If I'm not wrong.
So I thought count is a class.
We changed it to an ID. It's actually an ID now, not a class anymore. So okay, since it's an ID, we are using an ID. But if you want to use a class, we just use, let's just use a class for another one. Or let's finish with that one. If you want to use a class, let's just say, okay, count class, for example. Save it. So here we are going to have, let's count num2 be equals to document.querySelector, right? So you can now say dot class. What's our class name? Count class. So with this now, we've been able to get the elements from our index.html. We've been able to get the element from our index.html. If I should do console.log count num, let's see what will happen in our, we're going to get the old elements inside our console. As you can see now, look at it. This is the old element, app.js6. So this is it, P with a count ID, and then it's having mx4. Just go back to your index.html, you see it. See mx4 with a class, count class. And then this is what we have.
I have a question.
Okay.
Okay, please. I just noticed on your JavaScript where you said get element. Then I noticed that you are mixing it up with capital and small letters. So I want to ask, is the get element case sensitive?
Yeah, it's very case sensitive. JavaScript, most especially, they work with what do I call it last week? Somebody should remind me.
Camel.
Okay. Camel case. Thank you very much.
Camel case.
Camel case. That's just so. Remember camel case. The first letter is going to be small, and then the other words, if you have more than two words joined together, so other ones, the first one is going to be capital letter. So if you have it like this, it's not going to work. So it has to follow get element by ID or query selector. Is that okay?
Okay.
All right. So that's it. So now let's try. Now we've been able to get the ID. This is our element. Okay, I'll take that, Dozy. So this is our ID. I believe you guys can see my screen is a little bit small, but this is the ID. This is the element. Let's try with class count num2 also. For our class, let's save it and see what we have in the console. Okay, so this is our class. This is the reason why I mostly like to use class, because class will give me the way it is exactly from my index.html. As you can see now, I'm seeing it the way it is exactly from my index.html. This is for class. So this is one of the reasons I like to use query selector. I like to use class for everything. So, but then we don't have anything in our p tag. We don't have anything. So if I should say, if I want to get, what I was able to get now is just the element itself. I was able to get the element itself. Okay, before we go there, David, please, can you ask your question?
Okay, you said something about using the query selector, but I
Okay.
think he said it's only, I don't know if I get you right. He said it's going to be used for class. Like, is it only for class?
Query selector is for class. Document.query selector. You cannot use query selector to get an ID. It will not work. For example, let me say, okay, this thing that I'm passing here, or this value that I'm passing here, this variable, anything that you have inside your index.html. So because I have class here, then I'll have to use, for me to be able to call this element using the class, I have to use document.query selector and then dot the class name, right? If I'm using an ID, I'll have this ID here, this ID, count ID. And then at the same time, in my app.js, I'll say document.get element by ID, then the ID name. When you're using class, you have dots. When you're using an ID, you don't have anything. So, and then when you're using class, document.query selector is only for class. It's only for class. If you check, you can have document.query selector, a lot of query selector. All, this one is going to be maybe for something later. In the case when you're working with an array of classes and you want to get all of the classes at once, that's when you come to query selector all. But for now, what we are working on is just a single class, right? And then we are passing the class, which it is here, this class, count class. We are passing this as the parameter for this query selector to take. This is the parameter. If you're in the last class, you understand what I mean by parameter. But let's forget about that. Just know that, okay, when I'm using query selector, I'll look for the class that I want to use in my elements, then I'll pass it here. And if I console.log the class now, the value or the variable, sorry, count num2, I will get that element inside my console.log. So that is just for you to see that, okay, I think I'm getting the class properly. I think I'm getting the element properly. Is that okay? Do you have any
All
more
right.
questions?
It's because I've tried using it with ID. That's why I'm just asking. Right?
And it's working also, right?
Yeah, I
Let me
changed the dots
see.
to hash and it worked.
Count ID.
Yeah, we give it hash.
Yeah, okay. That's fine. Oh, this is actually fine too. Although I don't really use this. So this also works with your hash, because remember when you're working with CSS, you say hash for ID and then dot for class. So that's just basically what this does for. Let's go with this for now. Get the class, and then we're able to get the actual thing. Oh, sorry. Count class. Okay, now I want to get the value of my count class. I want to get the value inside this my index.html. Remember, currently there is nothing there, right? So I was able to get the element itself. Now you want to get the value of, or you want to get what is inside that element. We have a couple of ways to get what is inside the element. We have .inner HTML, we have dot text content, and we have dot inner content. We have dot inner HTML. We have dot inner text content, and then we have dot inner content, if I'm not wrong. So for us to get whatever value we have, whatever inner text, okay, inner text, whatever. Thank you. So for us to get the content or the text we have inside an element, you have to add dots, any of these three, to your variable. For now, count num2 is what? Is our element. This is it. Count num2 is our element. So we want to get the inner HTML of this. So what do? We just say console.log dots inner HTML should give us whatever value we have inside our HTML. So let's do that. Let's put 200 first so we can see if we are going to get it. 200. Let's see. Fine. Now we have 200. Now we are using document.querySelector.count class to get the element first. Now, after getting the element, I want to be able to get the value of that element. I want to be able to get the content inside that element. So you can use .inner HTML, or you can at the same time use .inner text. Is there inner text? Okay, let's say text content. Right. So we have text content, which is going to give us the same 200. There's one other one. Yeah, I can't remember. Okay, let's just go with the first two for now. I can't remember. There's one other one that you can use to get the content of the element. But for now, let's go with our inner HTML. So, but then you don't have to call it inside your console. You know, remember, we want to use it. So you can either add it to this one or create a different variable to say, let count num value, count num2 value be equals to count num2 dot inner HTML. You can now say count num2 value, which this is more like too much of work, right? This is going to give us the same thing. It's going to give us 200 still, but then it's more like too much of work. So instead of that, we can just shorten the whole process and say dot inner HTML here, and then we can now have console.log our count num2 here, which is also going to give us the same thing. So let's see. Yeah, we have 200. So that is just it. If you want to get the inner HTML of a particular element, the first thing for you to do is to give your element a class or an ID. You can do the same thing. Let's say, okay, we can have dot inner HTML on this one also, right? And then we can have count num. And then let's say this is the ID. Remember, we are using this to get the ID. We are using the ID, sorry, to get the element here, while we are using the class to get the element here. So we console.log the class first, we're able to get our 200. So we are trying to console the count num also if we will get the 200. So let's see. Yeah, I think we get the 200. For us to be sure, this is console 10 and this is console 10. All right, Sammy asked a question. We're going to take this class very slow because of what's involved.
Oh, I'm done.
Are you lost? Like you're lost?
Yes, equally lost.
Okay. All right. Let's come back. Okay. Do you guys understand till this add and then this subtract? Did you get to that point?
Yes,
All right.
yes.
Fine. So let's forget about that for now. What we are trying to do right now is we have an element. Yeah. Remember, this is an element. Okay. P tag is an element. While another we have just this element like this, we have it, and then we have 200 inside our P tag. Now the problem is I want my JavaScript to see the content of this element. How do I make my JavaScript to see the content of this element? I can do that in two ways. I can either do that by calling the ID of that element or by calling the class of that element. Remember, in our CSS, we call an element and style that element using the ID or using the class. You can either say dot class or dot ID to get the ID to call the element, and then we can now style the element however we want to style it. Okay, so at the same process, the same way that you use your dot class and then dot ID in your style, we use the same process in our JavaScript. But the only difference with JavaScript is that you use document. Document means, okay, for this document, like this page is a document. See, this page now is a document. So document now gets elements by ID. Look for everything you have on this document and then get an element by its ID. Get an element on this index.html by its ID. So what JavaScript is going to look for is going to look for this ID that you passed. Okay, which ID are you trying to get? Which ID are you looking for exactly in this index.html? So you now say, okay, I'm looking for count ID. So JavaScript will come to this index and start looking for all the ID. It's going to like scan through all the ID, count out until it now, okay, I think this is the ID I'm looking for, right? This is the ID I'm looking for. So JavaScript will now pick this element like this because it is the element that we are looking for, not the ID. It is the element that we want, but we want to use the ID to look for the element. It's more like when you are working with Excel sheet and then you are looking for a particular row number. So it's not like you don't really need the row number. What you need exactly is the content of that row. So the content of that row is the element, while the row number is the ID that you are going to look. You are using the ID to look for the content, right? So the same thing is applicable here. We want to use this ID to look for the element. So that's why we say document.get element, get this element by an ID. Which ID? The count ID. So when you console.log, forget this for now. So the only reason we just need to store this, we need to assign this to a variable so that we can do console.log that variable to see if we were able to get our element in our JavaScript. So that's what we did. So we say let's count num. You guys are understanding let's count num already. This is the keyword and this is the variable. And this is an assignment operator, the equal to. Okay. So now we say document.get element by ID, count ID. So after getting this thing now, assign it inside the variable or store the whatever you get, the element that you get, store it inside the count num variable. So we now say console.log count num. So if you check our console now, we are going to see come in. Let me refresh. Okay, yeah, now we are seeing this is the ID. This is just showing us that, okay, I think we've been able to get the element. This is an element. So if you check your index again, check the ID, the element. You see you have ID, count ID, you have MX4, and then you have count class. So just look at this. We have hashtag represent an ID, remember. So we have hash count ID, okay, and then we have the MX4, which is this, and then we have the dot class, which represents a class, as you can see. So that is showing you that, okay, we've been able to use our document.get element by ID to look for this element inside our HTML. If you open up this, you're going to see different options of anything or all the stuff you can get, all the things you can get inside this element. You're going to see it here. But what we need exactly is to get what? The content of that, get the content of that element. And if you check, just look down, you see something like inner HTML. You see inner HTML. I think I passed that. Come in. Okay, see here. So now we have, what are we looking for is the inner HTML. That means the content of this our element. That's what we are looking for. We are not really interested in the element itself right now, but we are interested in the content of the element. we are only interested in the content of the element. So we are either going to use dots after getting the value like this, after getting the element like this. We are either going to use dots inner HTML to get the 200 or use dot inner text to get the 200. So that's why we say, okay, we can use dot inner HTML text content or dot inner text to get the 200. So for us to do that, we just include dot inner text like this. Just include dot inner text to this document dot query get element by ID to get the inner text. Remember, this already has given us the element. So what we need inside the element is the value. And then how do you get the value? You use dot inner text to get the value. So now let's save it. And this is our console. Now our console should be able to give us what? The inner text of this element that we are looking for, which is what? 200. This is the inner text of this element. So that's what we are looking for now. So now let's see. We have it, 200. The same way that we were able to use our ID to get the class or the element, we can at the same time use our class name to get the same element. But if you are to use a class name, you have to use query selector. If you are to use an ID, it is best to use get element by ID. If you are to use a class, it is best you use query selector. So now we want to use a class, not an ID anymore. Here we use the ID to look for it, this ID to look for it. But we want to use this class. Imagine in some cases you don't have an ID there. Maybe you are tired of typing an ID. You don't even remember that you want to use an ID. So all you want to use is a class name. So in that case, you just do, let's comment this out. You use let's count num2, let's object count num2 equals to document.query selector. Since in this case, I am trying to use my class to get the element. So I will use query selector. So remember the class name that you that you pass is what? Count class. That's the class name. So it is the same thing that you are going to call inside your parameter here. So dot count class. But because it's a class, you have to add dots to it. If it is an ID, let's say you want to use an ID there, you add hash to it. But in this case, we are using a class. So it's going to be dot count class. So if we now console again, console count. No, for now, what we are getting is just the element. So if we save this now and see our console, let's see what we have. Fine, we have what? The element. So I was saying that I like to use my query selector. I like to use classes because of the way console.log will represent the elements for you. So currently you can see, I was able to see it clearly. I was able to see my class clearly. If you know what you're doing, you should be able to see your ID clearly also. But then in some cases, maybe, okay, I've not gotten to that level. So with your class, you see that, okay, I think I'm getting this very clearly. Although when you use ID, you get to see different things that you can get from that particular element. Remember, when we use our ID, we click on something like this, it opens up all the options that you have. But using a class, you don't see all of those options. You just see, the only thing you see from that is just the element itself. So that's the disadvantage and advantage of both of the two. All right. Now let's see, we have our elements right now using our class. We want to get the inner text or the inner HTML or the text content, right? So we can now add to this place dot inner HTML. Then let's save it. Now let's console.log. You're supposed to get what? 200. So that's what we have now, 200. So we can either use that or at the same time we can use text content, right? Save it, and then let's see what we have. We are still going to get the 200. So that's just a way for us to get the content of an element. The first thing you need to know is how to get the element. Then after getting the element, you have to get the content of that element using the inner text, text content, or inner HTML. Any further confusion? Any more questions?
So text content or inner HTML we use for query selector.
Come again, please.
dot text content and inner HTML can only be used for query selector. Can text
No, you
content
can use, yeah, you can use any of the three. You can use any of the three for any of, you can use inner text, text content, or inner HTML for either of the two.
okay.
You can use it for either of the two.
Excuse me, sir.
Okay.
For the query selector, you also said that in your count class, you can have an ID class also there.
Yeah, if, for example, let's say our element has an ID, let's add an ID. So we say ID, just use ID. So let's save it. If I don't want to use the class, if I don't want to use the class here, I can also use ID. But then remember, our ID is going to be the ID that we use. Remember, hash is used to call an ID, while dot is used to call a class, to represent the class. So in this case, since we have an ID, so we can use ID. That means your query selector can act for both ID and can act for both ID and class. That's just what query selector means. Query anything using this thing. This is a query, right? Now look for this thing anywhere in my document. This one is telling document to look only by ID. Why this one is telling document to look by this thing? You can look by whatever it is I have here. That's what I want to just find it for me. So I have my ID. Where is it? I have my ID here, right? So I'm calling it using the query selector. Let's say we are going to get the same thing. Let's just look for it. We should get 200 still. Say we still have 200 still. All right. So, but then for me, I mostly like to use query selector for only class, and I like to use get element by ID for only ID. For me, so whichever one that you find comfortable or you find easy, so feel free to use that. Is that okay? I believe that's Abiri.
Yes, it's okay. Abiri. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, Francesca, you said is this low, please? What exactly? Tell me what the issue is. Just we have to be on the same page before we move forward. I know, like I said, JavaScript is kind of like really simple. It's really, really simple. You just have to understand it. I want to take it very slow. Francesca, do you have any concern? Do you have any issue? The pairs, are we all good? Like, are we all okay?
Yes, sir.
George, Jasmine, okay.
Hello, boss. For the function.
Okay.
For the function, you haven't defined it yet, Abi. You haven't defined the function yet. The console.log is just to check if we press the button, it's going to work. So we have to still define, I just want to get it. We have to still define the function of add with the maybe equal to plus sign, and we still have to define the function for subtract, Abi.
Yes. We have defined the function.
Because we haven't defined them at all.
What we need to do now, the action, that's all we are
is to give it the action, okay.
What
an operator.
Exactly, the action, exactly. All of the action. Although currently, console is also an action. But then the actual action that we want, we've not done that.
But it won't show.
It won't show. What do you mean by it won't show?
Like it will show up in the UI now. The result will show up
for now,
in the UI.
For now, it's not going to show up in the UI for now. For now, it's not going to show up. Okay, Jasmine.
Yeah, my question is about the inner text that gave us 200. Is it that it has been defined already as 200, or is it like a default number?
No, I made it 200. It's because I want us to see it. That's why I use 200. If I change it to 900 now, it's going to change. So, but then what I was saying is I want us to not have any value here. I want us to assign a value to this place using our JavaScript. All right. So how do we do that? Remember, dot inner text is going to give us the value, the text or the content of that element. Now, if we want to assign something to a let, so we can say count num is equal to 50. Let me remove that guy first. Let me remove this. Okay, I think I removed it. Okay. Now, come in. Count num equals 50. Okay, now you can see console.log count num is giving us 50. Basically, what I'm trying to say is we don't want to have any content inside our P for now. We don't want to have any, we don't want to give it a default content. We want JavaScript to be able to give us a content inside our place. We want JavaScript to be able to pass a content inside that our P. That's what we are trying to do. Although, let's focus on the add and the subtract for now and see what we have. So let's just give this one for now. So by now, I know we already know, okay, we can now call our elements using the document.getElementById or using the document.querySelector. So we can use any of those two to call our element and get what we want. So now we want to call our add element. We want to call our plus. We want to make our plus to add or to increment a value. We want to ensure that our plus is what is incrementing a value. So let's do that. Let's call our stock. Anytime I click on minus, I want my stock to what? To reduce. And anytime I click on plus, let's just use that for an example. Anytime I click on plus, I want my stock to what? To reduce. To increase, sorry. So first thing, I have to get my stock. So let's go back to our stock. So here we already have a class for our stock and we call it what? 10. We're giving it the value of 10. So let's call our stock inside our JavaScript. So we say let stock be equals to documents.querySelector. So we say dot stock. Remember, right? Dot inner HTML. That's now let's console.log that. Let me just do that here. Console.log stock. This stock is not going to show in our terminal until we've clicked on add. It's not going to show in our terminal until we have clicked on what? The add button. So sorry, I said terminal, our console. Nothing is showing right now. But when I click on the add button, then I will get the value of what? The stock. So let's click that. I get 10. Right? So now this is what I want to do. I want us to add to the value of stock when I click on add. I want us to increase the value of stock by 1. So how do I increase the value of stock by 1? We have something they call increment. We did that last week. I want someone to just tell me the answer to that. You want to increase the value of stock by 1 every time you click on the add button. So how do I do that? How do I do that?
We use the plus plus operator.
Stock.
I mean stock plus plus.
Okay. So now let's see. Now let's click on it. We have 10. We have 11. We have 12. And we have 13. Someone is trying to say something.
Yes, it's because the difference between inner HTML and text content.
Well, I would say it's mostly the same thing, but inner HTML we not get only it's not going to get only the value. For example, in our elements here we have 100, right? So when you have another thing inside it, for example, inside your div, let's say we are using a div now. Let's say we have a div, right? This is an element, okay? So inside the div, we have another P, okay? So in this case, when you pass a class to this guy, let's say div, and you call this div, you now say dot inner HTML, that is going to get the P itself. But when you say dot text content, there's no text content yet inside the div. The only thing you have inside the div is what? Inner HTML. You only have an HTML text inside the div. So in that case, when you need to get something like this, you use what? Inner HTML. But in this case, you need to get 100, the content of the text itself. You use what? Text content. However, those things can actually work can work like just anyhow you want it, right? You can use the inner text for inner HTML interchangeably and all of that. But then the best thing to do is if you want to get your HTML, if you want to get an HTML inside a div, you use your inner HTML. And at the same time, if you want to get a value like this, just a normal value or a text content, it could be a value, it could be a normal string. So as far as you want to get it, then you use what? Your text content or your inner text. So that's just, but then if you use inner HTML for this, it's still going to work. If you use inner HTML for text content, it will still work. So that's just the basic difference between it.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. So now we are trying to come in. We are trying to click on, we already have a function inside our app.js that gives us, okay, the value of stock initially is what? Is 10, right? So when you click on stock, let me put this here. So when you click on this add button, you want the value of stock to keep increasing. You want the value of stock to keep increasing. So how do we do that? You add stock plus plus. That means my stock should keep what? Increasing. My stock should keep what? Increasing. So console.log stock to see the increments now. So we say, let me cancel this. Now that's 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and all of that. So this is the increment from the value of our stock. Now, what are we even trying to do exactly? Okay, let's do it for minus also. Let's go to minus, just copy this.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, I'm with you.
Okay, please, I want to understand something.
Okay.
This count num variable and the stock variable, they are both variables, but why is it that the stock is the same class that we pass to the stock, but in this count num, there's no count num as a class in our HTML. Is it like a constant something?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. Variable can be anything. Variable can be anything. It depends on how you best understand your own code writing, right? It could be anything. I can say, instead of, we have count class as our class in our index. So I can use count class here. And I can use count num, and I can still use count. Is there anything that I want to use? It's my choice. So I can use anything. The same stock that I use here, I can use stock num. I can use stock number. It's just something that, okay, if I see this thing, I can understand, or I can easily find what I'm doing or know what I'm doing. So all of this variable can be anything. It could be anything. But one thing I want you to know is that you have to ensure that it follows the camel case policy, the camel case rule. That's just the basic thing. If you are using a const, then ensure it follows the constant rule. So that constant mostly is going to be a capital letter. Everything should be in capital letter. If you're adding two words, you add underscore to it, just like this const. Let's say my name. This is two words, so you add underscore to it. That's for const. Why let should be camel case. So, but these variables could be anything. I don't know if
Okay. It has to be
question.
a particular class, right?
Come again, please.
It has to be related, like as something related
exactly. It's not like it has to, but for your own good, it should be. For your own good, it should be, so that you know that, okay, this is because our code right now is still very small. We are only having 19 lines of code. Very soon, very, very soon, we are going to be having up to 3,000 lines of code, or let's say 5,000 lines of code. And then when you are calling when you need to go back, you can't just keep going back to see, okay, what's the name? What did I name this thing self for? But because you already know that, okay, stock is stock. You understand? You know yourself and you know how you write your code. You know that, okay, if I have a class of stock, what I will use is stock. So you just console.log your stock, and then you see that, okay, this is my stock. So it's just the naming convention. It's best for you so that you can easily read your code when the code is getting larger. So that's
Okay.
yeah, all right. So we've been able to try the add. Now we want to try the subtract. So we've added to 14. Let's add first. Add. Now we get 15. We want to subtract 14, 13, 12, 11. So that's the subtract. This is the on-click function for add, and the on-click function for subtract is working fine. Now, our goal is to be able to add the value that we have here. This value should be 0 first. Then when you add another one, the value here should increase by 1. That means, okay, I've added one more item to my cart. When you add another one, it should be 2. Add another one, it should be 3. So how do we do that? Let's have a const. Let's have a const. Const default. Let's just call it default. No, not const. Let's have a let, sorry. Let's default count be equals to 0. This default count, right, is equals to 0. Let me remove this. Default count is equals to 0, right? I'm not using plus, sorry. So default count plus plus will give me an addition. So I'll now say console.log default count. Now let's save that. Let me try if that's working. So I have default count and I click on plus. Okay. Click on it again. I have 2, I have 3, I have 4. That's working fine. Now let's put this our value inside our count. Remember, inside our HTML, we have this. Where is it? Where is it? Where is the P? So we want to pass that the value that we are getting from here, the value that we are getting from our default count. We want to pass it toward our P tag, our count class. We want to pass it so that when you are clicking on these slides, when you click on one, you get the 1 here. When you click on again, you get this 1 here. When you keep just the more you click, the more the number will change. The number will keep changing. The number will keep changing. So now let's do that. Let's see it. We can say count dot inner HTML is equal to default count. Let's see. Two, 3. Okay, I'm coming. There's something I need to do here first. Let's make it 0 from the beginning. 0 from the beginning. Okay, I'll refresh, clear this up, and then add 1, 2, 3. Okay, fine. Now this is it. Let me come back again so we get it clearly. We have a minus button, which is this, the button to subtract. And we also have a button to add, which is this, a button to add, right? And then in between that button, we have a number that when we click on add, we expect the number to increase. And when we click on subtract, we expect the number to what? To decrease. That's the idea. That's what we want to do. Now, first thing we need to do, okay, we need to get this HTML. Okay, first thing, we need to add an on-click function to the minus and an on-click function to the plus. So we do that, button on-click, subtract. We call a function, we call it subtract. And then inside our button to add, we call it what? Add. So in our app.js, we now declare the function add, and then function subtract. Okay, so that's what we do. So after doing that, I'm coming, remove this also. So after declaring the function, the first thing we now did was to test if our on-click function is even working at all. Because sometimes it's possible you make a mistake, you add S, and you think, okay, I think you did not know that, okay, this my HTML is add. So you mistakenly add S to your own, which is not going to work fine. So if you try to do your console.log here, now that when I click on this button, I want something to happen, clicked, then you're going to get an error that adds is not defined. So let's do that. See, you're getting an error that ADD is not defined. Is not defined, right? So now what do we do? Remove this, save it, so that because what we use in our index is what is ADD. All right. So now function ADD, when we click on that button, which is ADD, which is add, we want this to print to the console. Now let's do that. Clear this and add. Now we have clicked. That means, okay, our function or our button is being clicked. That's the first thing. Now the second thing, test your subtract if it's also working fine. Console.log subtract click. Let's just say sub clicked, just to check if your subtract button is also working fine. So to do that, wait for it to refresh. Okay, now clear this one and then click on minus, sub clicked. That means we are good to go on the add and the minus. Okay, so after doing that, the next thing is we need to get the value of this guy. Initially, the value of this guy is 0, right? So by default, the value is what? 0. As it is there, it is 0. Now I want to get this element so that when I click on my add, right, I want this 0 to increase. When I click on my add, I want the 0 to increase. So to do that, the first thing, you have to call your element itself. So to call my element, we say let count be equals to document.querySelector count class. This is to call the element. After calling the element, we now say we could come in, let me try something. Let me try something. No, it's not going to work. Okay, so after calling the element, we now declare a default. Let default count be equals to 0. That means we want to start from a 0. Okay, let default count be equals to 0. So when I click on my add function, I want this default count to increase by 1. So to do that, you just do default count plus plus. Default count plus plus. Anytime I click on this add, I want my default count to increase by 1. So after doing that, let's confirm that. So we go to add. Let's wait for this to refresh. So we click on our add function, add button. Why is it not clicking? Okay, sorry, I did not console. Sorry. Console.log default count. So to see the changes. Okay. So now let's see. Let's wait for it to reload. Click this. Now we have 1. You know, initially it's 0. When you click on it, it adds 1 plus 0. When you click again, it adds 2 plus 0, 3, 1 plus 0, just like that. So that's how we're able to get the counter. So, but then that is not what we need exactly. We want this counter to go into this inner HTML. We want this counter to go straight into this our count. Remember, this is count. So when after you click and then your default count increases, you now want your count.inner HTML. Remember, to access the inner HTML or the inner content or the inner text of an element, you use the inner HTML. So I want to get the inner HTML and then make the value of that inner HTML to be equals to my default count. So I'll now say count, which is the element that I've already got in here. I've already get the element here, dot inner HTML. That means the inner HTML of this count should now be equals to what? My default count. So whatever the default count is at a particular time should now be equal to my count.inner HTML. Now let's save it and see what we have. Let's see what we have. Still refreshing. Okay, so by default, I have a 0 as my inner count. As my count, by default, I have 0. So for every time I click on this button, I want my default to increase. And then at the same time, I want the value of this default, which is increasing, to now be the value of my count.inner HTML. So that's what it's. Excuse me. When I click on this, I get 1. When I click on it again, I get 2. When I click on it again, I get 3. So if I keep clicking, it's going to keep increasing, and keep increasing. So that's how we get our counter using the first default count plus plus. Now to do the same thing for minus is very simple. It's very, very simple. What we do is to just reverse the default count, minus minus, and then we say count dot inner HTML will now be equals to default count. So when you are subtracting, when you are clicking on the subtract button, your default count value is going to be reducing by 1. And then at that point, the value of that default count will now be the value of your count dot inner HTML. But all of these things will not happen until you click on the add button or you click on the subtract button. None of these things is going to be triggered. Functions are not triggered until you click. This add function are not are not triggered until you click on that particular button that you assign it to. So now let's see. We have add 2, 3, 4. Now let's minus 3, 2, 1. Like this. So one thing is you can minus and it keep going to minus, minus. So and then so it's now another function that will check for that thing to stop at 0. When you keep clicking, it's going to stop at 0. So, but then let's not go to that for now. We've been able to get our counter, and we now let me make this thing bigger. It's more like a small. Let's make it bigger. Let's just focus on the counter. We have 2, and then this should be FS2 also. All right, so plus, plus, minus, 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 plus, 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 minus, minus, minus. Any question on this, please? Any question on this counter?
No,
Please
sir.
feel free. Okay, more chats. I've seen a lot of chats. You can still use the function without adding the add to your HTML. Okay, exactly, but we'll get to that later. We don't want to jump into those ones. You can use add event listener and all of those things. So I want to understand something. We always call our function in our HTML file. Is that the case always? That is not the case always, right? That is not okay. Like what David said, we can have a class and then use that class as our function. But when you're working with an on-click, and a button, the best thing for you to do is to use your on-click function. Just call your function in your HTML. That's the best thing for you to do as far as you're working on a button and an on-click event. So although if you don't want to use that, you don't want to call a function in your HTML, you can call the class and then use add event listener, but that is a little bit advanced for what we are currently. Yes, for that function, this function that we have here, app.js, which is add function, for this function to be able to run, you have to have it inside, you have to have it here. If you don't have it here, it's not going to run. Nothing is going to happen because something has to be clicked. Although this function is an on-click function, that's why it is like that. But there are some functions that, let's say you just have a function and then you call it add 2 numbers, like what we did from our last class. This is a normal function, but it's not an on-click function, it's just a normal function. This one is an on-click function from our index. So this one, for you to call this one and for this function to run, how do you call it? You just say add 2 numbers. Remember, this is the same thing as this inside our HTML. Remember, look at it, add, right? The same thing is this one, but this one is going to run automatically. We don't need to click on anything before this one runs. So, but then while doing it, this one is because we have it inside our button and on the on-click attributes. That's why it is waiting. This function is now waiting for you to click on that button before it runs. But then if you don't want it to wait, just call your function outside like this, and whatever you have here is going to run. So that's it. Let's see. I'm trying to read the questions. Okay. Okay. I see you guys have gone far. This is interesting. It's actually really interesting. I like that. But let's take it one after the other. We don't have to jump into add event listener right now. We don't have to jump into all of these things. Let's just pick it one after the other, right? So that not everybody is fine. I understand some persons that have made some research and then they've gotten to that level, but not all of us are on the same page. Okay, so let's pick it one after the other. First thing, let's focus on the on-click function, and then let's be able to at least see how that works perfectly before we now move to add event listener. So I like what I'm seeing actually. All right, so since we don't have any question on this right now, I believe we understand how the add and the subtract counter works. We understand that clearly. Now, the next thing now is when you're adding, right, you want your stock to reduce. When you're adding, you want your stock to reduce. Wow, I think we're out of time already. So I will give us an assignment. I know we have something we're working on currently, but then still at the same time, let's see how we can fix that. Let's try from our own end. When you add on this thing, when you click on this and you have one, you want this one to be subtracted from your in stock. You want this one to be subtracted from your in stock. To do that is very simple. You can just declare your in stock. Just declare your in stock here. Const in stock. Oh.
I thought this is an assignment now.
I'm coming. Let's in stock be equals to 10, for example, right? So then we can now say, you know, we already have the value of in stock here. So we can now say, anytime I click, I want to subtract the value of default from my in stock. So I can say in stock minus or equal to that's my minus. Okay, minus or equal to, that's minus or equal to the value of default count. I want to reduce, or at the same time, you can still say minus to make it easier. That means for every time I add to my default count, I want to reduce from my in stock. And for every time I subtract from my default count, I want to add to my in stock. But let's still figure out how this works so that whatever we have here is going to change. This in stock value is going to change when you are increasing and when you are reducing. So thank you very much, guys. Let's see, do you have any questions? This is going to get really, 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 really interesting and intensive. But I want us to just pick it one after the other, because DOM manipulation can be really confusing, But then just get it from the basics. Get the fact that, okay, this is how I can call or get an element from my HTML. This is how I can add. This is how I can send it back. You remember, for me to send it back, I want to send the value of default count back to my HTML. I just say count.innerHTML. Remember, count is our element, count class. And then the inner HTML will now be equals to my default count. So for me to manipulate my stock, I will say stock.innerHTML will now be equals to what? My in stock. Just like this. I don't know why I'm telling you guys everything. Stock.inner content. Let's use inner content right now. Or text content. Okay, inner text will now be equals to in stock. Okay. Okay, as you can see, for every time I add something, my install gets to reduce. So now I think I'm telling us already. Let me do this. Also, for every time I remove this, for every time I increase or reduce, my in stock will also get what? Change. So let this reload. I wish you can have more hour for this class. So like this, for every time I'm adding, when you're adding an item, your in stock is supposed to reduce. So now when you are removing it again, your in stock will keep reducing, increasing. So the same thing should happen to the total. This is the price. The price is 7,000 of one item. So when you add one item, your total should be, this total is wrong. For now, total should be 21,000 because our price is 7,000 and our item is 3. So total should be 21,000. That's because we've not done anything with the total. So I want us to see how we can fix this so that when you click on this, your total should now be your price should now be multiplied by your count norm. Your price should multiplied by your count norm to give you your total at this end. So thank you very much, guys. George, I'll take your question now. And then if you have any question, please feel free to raise your hand and you can attend to it. We're already out of time. George.
All right, boss. The default counts. I just have a question for the default counts. Was the default count specified in HTML, or we just called it in the JS and gave it the function add?
We just call it. We want to use it. We want to be able to use it for count.
Huh?
This default count is not declared anywhere inside our HTML. It is declared. If you see anything like let default count, you should understand that this is only declared here. This is a new variable, right? Which is declared inside our JavaScript. The same thing as our in stock is also declared inside the JavaScript. Why do we have this like this? Is for JavaScript to see the value and then we can able to manipulate it. So whatever it is that this true value is given is what we are going to reassign to our. This is the HTML. This count and stock is what we are getting from our HTML. And here is where we are reassigning our default count back to our count. And at the same time, we are reassigning our in stock back to our stock. So that's just, so we do not declare them anywhere in the I don't know, is it confusing? Do you get what I tried to? Do you get what I did?
No, I'll understand it. Don't worry.
So, just I see your hand.
So my question is, are we going to have task this week?
Are you going to have task? You want to kill people? No, we're not having task. We already we have submissions going on from the last task. There's always a week gap. When you have task last week, you're not expected to have task this week. So that's
okay, so it'll be next week.
Yeah, we'll have task next week. So what I want us to do, if you are done, if you have free time, I want us to create more things using this our manipulation. When you add, the total should increase. When you minus, the total should reduce. And you can add some other stuff too. That okay, maybe when you add two things, something should happen when you remove. So just find a way to do. Let's just manipulate this whole process so that this is going to look so nice, like when you're adding something to a card in Jumia or on Jumia. So let's see how we can. It's not a task that will be graded with. No, it's just like an assignment, something for you to practice. Next week, I'll ask questions on how, although we are going to do it ourselves, but at the same time, if you can fix it on your own, you're going to get easier next week while we are trying to fix it again. So that's it. Any more questions? Any further question? If you are confused at any point, please feel free to raise your hand, please. If you're not, don't be ashamed of asking questions when it comes to JavaScript.
Hello, boss. Sorry, can I see your HTML? Can I see your HTML code for the P?
Okay, for the P.
For the yes, I want to see something. Mine is not working. It still has the class. Mine is not working.
We are not using the ID, remember. We are only using
I know, but count class, but mine is not working. That's where the problem is. I'll figure it out.
Okay, well, you can still look at the video later. Just see the code here, the subtract, the add, and then the ID, the element here. And then this is the function. This is to get the count class, and this is to get the stock. So default count and in stock, right? And then we have the function for add, which is adding this default count by 1, and then it's assigning the value of default count back to our count.inHTML. The same thing here. This is subtracting by 1 and is assigning the value of default count back to our count.inHTML. So thank you very much, guys. Since there are no questions, I believe we've been able to. Sammy, are you very okay? Are you like really good? I know you can still go back. Most of us can still go back to the video to better understand it. But are you okay?
Not very okay, but I'm hoping to watch the video again.
Okay, all right. Oh, Allah. So thank you very much, guys. Let's meet again, same time next week. And we can, if you have any question when you're looking at the video, watching the video, just come to the Slack channel. Oh, sorry,
I'm
not sorry,
Thursday, not next week.
sorry, on Thursday. Thank you very much. So drop your concern, your question on if you have any question relating to stage 5 task, which is the Bootstrap task, drop it inside the channel created for that, the train created for that. And if you are behind, please make sure you drop it inside the Are You Behind? So any other thing, any other discussion concerning the current class, it will be dropped in the main front-end channel. So I just want us to have like a separation of channels. So thank you very much, guys. Have a wonderful day.
Yes. Somebody come on.